Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 6, Episode 51 of our weekly P&Q&C&A&T videos. It's a ton of letters. P stands for podcast. You check out the links in the description. You can see this in podcast form on all of the major podcasting platforms, which will be relevant again in just a second here. And the other stuff is just, it's a bunch of letters. We look at your comments and we say stuff, and sometimes it's a question, and sometimes we answer the question. And sometimes, it's something else, but it's always us and it's always talking. So that's not what the letters mean, but that's the closest approximation to the content you're going to find on them without me needing to go through them one by one. So getting into the first question, this one comes from Soyle, Soyle. I don't know how that's pronounced. Maybe. Yeah, Soyle, Soyle sounds right, but it also makes it sound like I'm saying dirt. Like a synonym for dirt.
Yeah, but that's how you spell Hoyle, right? The ones that are that one, the name's famous for card games.
Yeah, it seems accurate. Anyways,
and Boyle.
That's true. Lots of stuff. It's a pretty consistent pronunciation convention. It just sounds like another word.
Yes.
So let us know in the comments if that's right. As always. And their question is, hey, I have 3 questions that I would really appreciate if you answered in your next video. 1, is your podcast on Spotify? And then in brackets, if not, please add it. 2, can you build a team around Wally West for multiplayer? And 3, who's the best metal character and what gear should I put on them? Thanks in advance if you answer. And then they made a face.
Okay, so I'm not sure that I'm going to go really right into the answer, because to me, what it makes me wonder is, are we still getting new viewers? And are we getting them recently enough that that's why we're getting questions? Because, so out of the 3 questions, 2 we've not only answered, but we've answered recently. The first one in the description of every single video that we do is a P&Q&C&A&T.
Yeah.
The third one we just did last week. Mm-hmm. Because we talked about it in the context of the overrated cards, and there's really only one metal that I think is not overrated, which by default is the best metal card.
Yeah. I guess we didn't do the gear to put on him.
I guess not. But we talked about how, because I don't want to really make the effort to avoid saying the name just to be difficult. So it's Batman Ninja Catwoman. But we talked about it because you trigger her passive by knocking people out, doing a special 2 or doing other things. Special 2 takes too long. So what you want to do when you get her passive to trigger, you want to take advantage of it, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to make her a combination of both hardier, which is easy to do with the Astro Harness, and you want to make her do more damage, and you want to lean into the crit chance when her basic damage is boosted, because it's not all her damage, it's only basic damage.
Yeah.
And I guess the short answer for Wally West is, we could build a team around Wally West. We haven't yet, but I don't know that there's anything particularly compelling about him besides his stats and the fact that he's a Flash. Because with his passive, he dodges specials so that against a 10-2 totem, the opponent gets their power back. So it maybe buys you a fraction of a second right after they've done their special where you can do something back to them as long as they don't block. Mm-hmm. So I find in some ways Reverse Flash almost a little bit better. Stats aren't as good, but because Reverse Flash actually takes damage before he gets his cellular regen, the 10-2 totem doesn't get their power back. Mm-hmm. So we could. I don't know that I'd want to. Wally West, the passive makes him a little bit more tanky. But that doesn't mean really his best value is as a tank. Because, Flash, right? I've always had a soft spot for all the Flash characters. Even when we started, and I was thinking, I want to buy the Silver Flash. Strategy be damned.
Mm-hmm. That was I think the earliest in-store purchase.
It might have been. Have been. So it's, I don't know. I'm not really feeling it. The next couple of teams I think we're gonna do that we've got footage. We've been sitting on footage for a while. Is maybe the Batman Ninja Catwoman.
Yeah. So there you go. Our next question comes from Sly Snipes, and they say, "Are you guys going to continue with Injustice if it is clear that it will receive no new updates, or will you move on to other games? If so, then what?"
All right, so if you're not looking at this carefully, it feels like maybe we've been asked this question a lot lately, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's a real key to this. There's 2 ifs. Are you guys going to continue with Injustice if it is clear that it will receive no new updates, or will you move on to other games? If so, then what? And to me, that if is so hopeful.
First one.
Yeah, everybody else has been saying, all right, so Injustice is dead. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, what now?
Yeah, so we'll watch whatever we do, maybe play another game or stuff. I find this, I like this so much for that one extra word. It makes sort of all the difference.
Yeah, if it was a since, right? Since it is clear this game will get no more updates.
Which is what the original version of the question is that we've gotten so many times already anyways. Yeah. So I guess we've answered the actual content of the question. The meat of it is that there's no other game that would probably lend itself to us continuing to film a channel about that.
Yeah.
But so what do you think? I mean, we've revisited it a bunch of times. Have you had any new thoughts on it since last week?
I mean, I don't think so. I'm thinking about, because I'm playing new games. I found a new game for mobile called Counter-Snipe, which I'm actually finding quite fun. But again, it's not like I'm particularly good at it, right? It's not like there's any sort of advice to be had, like on the same scale. And all the stuff that I'm doing right now is, it's pretty old. I've mentioned this before. What I'm playing now is new, though. I'm playing Resident Evil 2. And again, I'm quite enjoying that. It's a great game. But, there's nothing functional that I can do that's going to help anybody. Like, I'm not even good at it myself, right?
All right, so...
and I don't think people watching me spook myself playing Resident Evil is going to be interesting for anyone either. Because I also probably don't play in a particularly interesting way, because I'm very conservative with my bullets, and I'm saving every 20 seconds, and I'm like, oh, I did bad, I gotta reset the save.
Okay, but that's a style of video that we've done in a conscious choice that we've made with these videos, where we want to demonstrate expertise. But a lot of the videos don't have that, and they just have people playing. And do you feel then that our personalities aren't compelling enough?
I don't think I'm
justify...
interesting enough for that. I don't know why anybody would want to watch me play Resident Evil or something like that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Like,
why?
At one point, I even felt that way about our information videos, because it felt like a lot of the information was pretty self-evident.
Yeah.
But the more we do this, more I feel, okay, so maybe we do have something to add. But I'd have to agree with you. I don't know. But maybe we've specifically made a conscious effort not to. I mean, a lot of those videos, they have people showing their faces. They're happy to have their names. They're making... basically a YouTube kind of statement. This is their thing, right? And they're not trying to be... It's not anonymous, but more pseudonymous, right? Because we're sticking pretty consistently with this name, but we're just not...
We'll see. I don't know. Probably, like I said, it's just... If there's another game, the suggestions that we get for games are like... It's like, oh, well, that could be good. The only problem is I don't play that game. Or I'm not, interested in playing that game, or oh, I don't have anything to say about that. Like, there's just, I look at those and I'm like, yeah, that would be great for people who aren't me. I just don't see pulling content out of it.
So maybe what I need to do then is find a screen recorder for the desktop, because I need a keyboard, like a good keyboard to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna just record myself playing Boggle.
I have a good screen recorder for you.
Oh yeah.
You'd probably want a different keyboard though if you're gonna record audio while you're playing it. Or I guess you wouldn't be. You'd be...
I think I'd have to be focusing. I mean, I could
yeah.
be talking about it, but I mean, that would be nasty with all the clickety-clackety with the mechanical
we
keyboard.
both have mechanical keyboards, so it'd be loud.
And what's the one that's click? Is brown?
Cherry MX Blues are what we
Blues,
have.
yeah.
There's multiple ones that are clicky, but blues are the clickies
the loudest.
That we have specifically.
All right, so I've got browns at work, so they click a little bit, but not that much.
Because
not a tactile click.
Browns don't have like a physical click. I think they have a sound for bottoming out, but I don't think they actually have like a click in their actuation.
No, they don't. It's more smooth. Like, it's pretty clean line. Yeah, and I like that. I mean, I spend all day typing.
Aren't they brown, like simulated browns? Or whatever? Like, they're too cheap for actual ones.
I don't know. Maybe it is a cheapness. I think I always felt like it was an alternative, right?
I think it was cheaper.
Is it that when you come out first, that's it, and everybody else after that is an imitation?
I just think that Cherry is like the standard. It's like the gold standard for Switches.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got one mechanical keyboard from a friend for $20 because it was 6 months old and they got a new, better one. Thanks, Cam. So, I don't know anything about mechanical keyboards. I did a little bit of research when getting the second mechanical keyboard that we have in the computer space.
And the one at my work, I mean, clearly it is a discount keyboard. It was only $40.
Yeah.
I waited for it to be on sale before I picked it up.
Yeah.
And I spent years with like a mushy membrane keyboard.
Yeah.
Until you convinced me of the wonders.
I didn't convince you. I just let you use my.
That was very. It was very convincing.
Yeah, that's the most convincing part. You can tell. I've had somebody use it and be like, "Oh, I don't like that," but
Well, that's only one type of mechanical, right?
Yeah, but that's really the sales pitch, is just let somebody else type on it.
I know.
Yeah,
it makes such a huge difference.
So there we go. That's our quick mechanical keyboard plug. See if you have any computer savvy friends named Cam who own mechanical keyboards and will sell you them for cheap. That's my ideal retailer for mechanical keyboards. Can't recommend them enough.
Because the life of each key is huge. It's like 10. Is it 10 times as much as a membrane keyboard?
Like, I think it's maybe. Yeah.
Like, that's sort of a joke, but it's not really. That's one of the benefits of having mechanical.
It might be like 5 times as much. It's maybe like 3 versus like 15 million presses or something like that.
All right.
Or I don't know the exact numbers because I don't know anything about mechanical keyboards. But yeah, it's ridiculously more. So 6 months light use, it looked new. Like it had like the water marks or whatever. It's like water stains.
It's not just the advantage of that it feels better. It actually lasts longer. Although the joke, I guess, is if you have a crappy keyboard and it lasts longer, is that actually worth something? It's the thing. There's a really old comedian's joke where people are having dinner at a restaurant. They complain, "Oh, this is awful," and the other guy complains, "Yeah," and the portions are so small. You get it? Like, do I have to? Okay,
yeah, I get it.
It's not that funny.
It would be. I think you need to emphasize. I think can we workshop this? I think you got to emphasize how bad it is a little first. You gotta say, "Oh, this food is gross," and it's like, "Yeah," and there's only 3 bites of it. Is like fine. Or like, "This is the worst food I've ever tasted. This tastes like dog food. This is awful. I feel like I'm gonna throw up." And it's like, "Yeah, the portion sizes are so small."
Yeah,
it's probably a little. Hit that a little harder.
But that's yeah, no, I'm totally sold on the idea. I don't mind paying a slight premium because not only is it better, but it lasts longer.
And the one that I got the Logitech G710, and it's got a bunch of features on it too. I love the sound bar because on the top right there's a little scroll wheel just for the sound.
Yeah.
So I never have to go into the manual computer sound. I can always go up and down whenever I want it. And I can just, if I want it muted, I can just like swipe it down a couple times. And if I want to like subtly adjust it while I'm like doing something else or in like another window, I never have to go around and click, which is really fun. And then the key button is, like I said, secondhand from a friend with light use is my ideal mechanical keyboard retailer. Because I would never have bought one new. Although I think if this one ever breaks, I think I will actually have to buy a pretty good, like probably upwards of $200 mechanical keyboard to replace this one.
It's like crack, is what you're saying.
It's an addiction. Yeah, what I'm saying is I can never go back to a normal membrane keyboard.
Oh, there's like that joke of that was it Just Shoot Me? There's I can't even remember the character, but the joke was that he got a raise. He had no idea what to do with the money because he didn't spend on anything, and so they convinced him. He ate rice all the time.
Yeah,
they convinced him to have what's the fancy version of rice?
Basmati?
No. It's like
risotto.
I was going to say I was thinking of some European country and I couldn't remember. So risotto, I think, is Italian. So he convinced him to have risotto, and he couldn't go back. And then when he got laid off or something, or he lost the raise, then he said, you ruined me. Now I can never go back. And he's all sad and poor because...
They also did that in Corner Gas with marmalade.
Oh, right.
And with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with crack.
There's different grades of crack. I never saw that. There's different...
Not different grades. They just got addicted to crack. I just wanted to make that joke.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not a new joke, but it's always kind of fresh and funny whenever I see it.
Yeah. So there we go. That buy a mechanical keyboard.
Not biomechanical, but buy a mechanical
keyboard. Well, you were talking about Boggle. You're going to make Boggle videos. Did we get around to anything about that, or did we just...
The idea really is that that's one area where I have some expertise. I'm not the greatest because I think the Boggle games that I see now use... I want to say the wrong dictionary, but it's not true. They just use a different dictionary.
They use wrong to you, unfamiliar.
So a lot of the words that I normally would get don't count. Some of the words that I don't go for are there, but I don't know them. And I'm out of practice by years. So I'd be sort of a little bit above average, I think. But I'd still have at least some expertise in terms of strategy and talking about what to do with it.
So you need your like rebuilding journey to be documented.
Well, I just don't. I mean, it's a different time in my life, right? I don't know if there's a real opportunity to get as good or as obsessive about it.
That's true.
Yeah, it's just No, I think
Ooh,
it'd be
but
fun.
it would be satisfying with the mechanical keyboard. Really get your mileage out of it.
It would. It would. So we'll talk. We'll talk.
Okay, so there we go. Our next question from this week is from Stel Maria. And they say, have you guys read any books by Neil Gaiman or Philip Pullman?
So can I just maybe make a comment at the name too? I don't know whether this is a boy name, girl name, or non-binary or whatever, but the fact that Maria is built in the name, no matter what I think about it now, to me it always seems like a girl's name.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Like I'm saying I guess I do know why, but ends in a vowel, has Maria built into it, and I'm going to have trouble getting out of it. But I also know that other languages other than English that have a lot of names that will end in vowels that play around with my assumptions about how names gender.
Mm-hmm. If the audio quality for me has changed at all, it's because I am now sitting up.
Instead of lying down.
Yeah.
So
we'll talk about a recording setup in a second.
I've never. Have you read Philip Pullman?
No.
Okay. So that was the Golden Compass and stuff, right?
Oh, okay.
You must have read one of them.
I don't think so.
Because that was definitely after my time. But Neil Gaiman. All right, so this is you've opened a can of worms, and
we've both read Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, but this is maybe an allusion to the fact that we've done a bunch of book recommendations in our opening videos and made book recommendations throughout these other videos just randomly.
Yeah,
because I like to read, although lately I haven't been reading as much as I would like.
And me also, the same.
Yeah, and it's funny you should ask about Neil Gaiman, Stel Maria. Because I read an article maybe a few months ago about Neil Gaiman where he talks about how Toronto, where we're basically one of the suburbs.
Approximately. We live in almost Toronto.
Yeah. And Toronto was the first place that actually loved him, that really treated him like a star, where there was like an evening with Neil Gaiman. Mm-hmm. And the interesting story for us behind that is my best friend worked at Bacca, which is now called Bacca Phoenix. It's a science fiction fantasy bookstore. And
every day we get closer to doxing ourselves.
This is true.
Every day we get a little bit closer to telling people our home address.
But this is so obscure, though. I think it's not. I mean, I guess go at it if you want to trace this. The value of doing it. I mean, we've been maybe very protective of our identities for not like a very compelling reason, except for other than the idea of just privacy.
Yeah, I just think that's funny.
It is a little bit.
So we inch closer to it.
So he used to be able to get tickets to exclusive events. This is the point I was trying to make. So he worked at Bacca. Bacca, Silver Snail apparently was a spin-off off Bacca. They used to sell comics out of Bacca. They broke that part of the business off, and it became Silver Snail. That's what I read somewhere. So I don't know. That was way before my time. So the first time I went to one of those events, Black Orchid had come out not that long ago, and I got that and Sandman #1 signed. So that was Sandman was Vertigo before it was Vertigo, I think. Or maybe it came very soon before Sandman started.
I have no clue.
So Vertigo was DC Comics line for mature readers, and it was sort of, but I don't know that it was necessarily that adult, other than the fact that it was definitely not superhero stuff, and it had more complicated storylines, and it was less of the superhero beating up on villains cliche.
Yeah. And they were really trying to corner the boomer end of the market.
I guess so. I don't know.
Were all the jokes about hating your wife?
No, they weren't. I mean, it was. So there was a real sort of there's a grim dark period of comic books when the Dark Knight came out, Watchmen had come out. And the lesson that people took from that was that they were successful because they were just
make everyone edgy.
Yeah, and definitely the wrong lesson. But DC took it in a different way, where they had a line of comic books. So I picked up Hellblazer, I picked up Sandman, and they were. I mean, Sandman was horror. So not Sandman. Hellblazer was horror. Sandman wasn't really. It was more mythical.
Yeah. But
they were taking advantage of the fact that there were people who normally weren't reading comic books that were reading comic books, and gave them something that was more interesting than what they used to call it. I think they called it 4-color heroes, like, because the printing process was so simplistic.
Yeah.
That every color in it was a combination of 4 different colors. So they'd mix something to get different shades. But now, I mean, you look at comics
Isn't
now.
that already how it works? Like, that's how computers work.
Well, no, but the palette of colors is become so broad because they went away from newsprint. The comics got more expensive, so they were able to print more colors on it. The newsprint wouldn't let you distinguish between different colors as well. So the palette you were working with was much smaller.
And now they have increasingly glossy JPEGs.
They do. So yeah, the electronic versions, right? So there's what's that? The Comixology.
I have no clue what you're talking about.
You know, there's some subscription services that let you read a bunch of comics.
I do not know.
Yeah.
I don't
Anyways,
know. That's
all right. So it's
news to me.
It's a Neil Gaiman story. So
It makes sense though. Everything wants to do a subscription model now.
Yes. What was I going to say? It was about
Neil Gaiman,
all right.
Sandman and stuff.
You know, so every time he came into town, my friend would be able to get us tickets if they were ticketed, or if they weren't ticketed, we'd just get in line. So when Neverwhere the book launched, in Toronto, I was there. I was at the event when American Gods was launched, the book, not the show.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of books signed. When Wolves in the Walls came out, got that signed. That used to be one of your favorite books.
It was a good book.
It was a great book. I mean, at that time
there was another event too that we went to together. Ocean at the End of the Lane.
Oh, right, that was way more recent. That was at the Danforth Music Hall.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I mean, I think what he writes is brilliant, and what he's done is actually, it's interesting because of where he comes from, right? He comes from comics. Comics have a much longer tradition of collecting, you know, like bagging them and boarding them, making sure they stay in good condition.
Yeah.
So there's an intersection there between book readers and collecting, where there's really fancy editions of books. So more than just collecting the first edition of something, there's a lot of publishers there that are willing to take advantage. Sounds too crass, but part of it is that, who are willing to take advantage of the interest in fans to pay for fancy books. And fancy could be anywhere from just a limited edition where there's not too many copies, to signed editions, to extra content, to fancier books that are really like well made. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, like hardcover books. Have you seen hardcover books lately?
Yeah, I have.
Like, or just a regular one, right? So the hardcover underneath,
It's like cardboard now, right?
it's just cardboard
with like glossy something on top.
The pages are just glued in.
Yeah.
I mean, if they've got something glossy on top, that's even fancier.
But it's not just cardboard.
I think it is.
There's some sort of finish on the outside. Like, it's got like a matte thing, but it's not literally like rough cardboard exterior.
If you take off the jacket, it is. For a lot of them. Like for the mainstream, the big houses, they publish hardcover books. A lot of those hardcover books, unless they decide to do something fancy,
but they have like paper on it. Like, it's like covered cardboard with like another paper product.
But what is cardboard then? Cardboard is really just thick paper, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's like folded over the front. Like it's like in it, a lot of it is like dyed, right?
Oh, you mean like the front page, like the end pages or whatever you call them?
No, I'm talking about like the actual hardcover itself. Is like, it's like covered cardboard, and it's like cardboard covered with
more
some
than just
other
one
paper
layer.
product, and then it's like wrapped around, and then you've got like the opening pages, right, where it's like it's glued to the face of it.
That's true,
right? So it's it's something on top of the cardboard. It's not like,
all right. So I'm thinking, just even not too long ago, that they used to actually make cloth bound books. So there would be cardboard, but instead of putting paper on top of it, it would be covered in cloth, and then there would be a different material for the spine, and the pages would be sewn together instead of just glued, which is better. Mm-hmm. And then you've got stuff where they actually get really high quality, like Japanese silk or leather. Like real leather books.
I was adventuring through my university's library not too long ago, and I was with a friend, and we found a book printed from sometime in like the early 1800s or something, mm-hmm. and the front was leather bound, and it was so old that the leather was like cracking off it.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that. I've got a few books like that.
And there was like the crepe paper on top of the pictures to like protect them.
Oh, yeah. All right, so I mean, before they had the printing presses and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Every book that you had to be copied by hand. There would be monks that would be there.
Scribes.
When there were pictures, they would call them illuminated manuscripts, because they would not only have to copy the words, they'd have to copy the pictures.
Yeah. So not quite that, but it was interesting. You know, some old books in my library.
Yeah, that
Varying
is
ages.
cool.
There was the same book that was like from like the 1800s and then like the 1900s. Like they had multiple like printings of it for some reason, like reprinted.
Oh, all right. So when you talk of multiple copies, I almost feel a little. It's a little sad how many copies of the same book I've got.
Yeah.
But I wanted to. So we're doing a play video right now, and Wonder Woman just knocked out Arkham Knight Catwoman, and I feel like I don't really want to interrupt, but it feels like it's missing a lot because this is in our unboxing videos. This is the part where I pan over to the books that I've got to show.
How many copies of which book are we talking about here?
I've got. I mean, I'm trying to think through. I can tell you what my most valuable books are, within my. I actually have a Neil Gaiman collection.
Yeah.
And how many copies I've got? I mean, Coraline.
I've got 1 million copies of Name of the Wind. Like so many.
How many copies of Name of the Wind do you have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6 of just Name of the Wind, not the series.
Copies that are the same copies, or are they different editions?
A lot of them are different editions. I have 2 of the normal edition. Right, both signed. I have 1 special release. They did a European version and then a North American version. I have both of those, I think, right?
Oh no! Those are both UK that were
UK.
Signed limited.
Okay, I have at least 3 special editions and then 2 normal editions.
You like that book?
It's a good book, and most of them are signed. And one of them is a contributor copy for somebody who contributed on the book and then gave it to me.
That was cool.
Which is not special at all.
It's special because
it's not
where
different.
It
Where it came from. Yeah, it's not noted as special, but it's.
But isn't that part of the joy when a book is signed? It's that you know that if it's signed and you know it's a real signature, that the writer touched that copy.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the whole book, because
the contributor copy isn't actually signed.
It is.
It's not signed by Pat. It's signed by the contributor.
But it passed through one of the contributors.
That's true.
So the idea, even though one of the not so secrets is that when you've got a signed book, a lot of times they just touch that one page, and then that page was bound into the book after they'd signed it.
I don't know why you're putting maybe a little more emphasis on the actual touching of it.
Well, you know what I mean. Like there's a connection between the book and the actual writer.
Yeah.
The physical artifact. So Coraline, I've got the pre-publication edition.
I'm lying down again.
Okay.
Yeah. What's up?
I've actually got more than one copy, and a bunch of them are signed with sketches. In like little tiny rat sketches by Neil Gaiman.
And you know, I don't need the glasses are coming off too. I don't need glasses. I'm gonna take a little nap.
I've got. Let me put you to sleep by talking about the books, copies of Coraline I've got. So that's one.
Yeah.
I've got the first hardcover. There was also a previews exclusive hardcover where the dust jacket looked the same, but the ghosts had a glow in the dark overlay, so they would glow in the dark, and they had a special section at the end where Neil Gaiman's daughter interviewed him and asked him a few questions.
That's pretty fun.
It was. There was a limited edition that was put out by Subterranean Press where they had extra pictures by Dave McKeon. And so Dave McKeon has well known as an artist in his own right, but he collaborated with Neil Gaiman on a bunch of comics, including, and he did all the covers for Sandman actually. So they first were together, I think, in Violent Cases, which was their first comic book together, printed in Signal to Noise. I wish I'd taken notes because I'm going to screw some of this up. Signal to Noise, and it was published by Titan Books when it was compiled together. And where am I? So that's four editions. Then there was a UK Bloomsbury edition that had a slipcase and was signed by both different artists, Mike Riddell and Neil Gaiman. And what else? That's 5 different editions, but I've got multiple copies of the regular trade and the advanced reading copy.
That's a lot of Coraline.
It's a lot of Coraline. It was a pretty good
it's
movie,
a ton of Coraline.
So, I mean, there's a ton of stuff, right, that I've got that... Oh, you know what probably is one of the interesting things was Hill House was a publisher that did limited editions. They went out of business. I've got a Hill House limited edition of Anansi Boys, which was a sequel to American Gods. And I missed out on my chance to get a copy of American Gods because at the time, it was just too expensive and I couldn't justify and I couldn't afford to get American Gods, but I got the Nancy Boys a little bit later. And it's really nice. It's got like a die cut. So there's a cut in the slipcase, so you can see part of the cover of the book. The material on the outside is fancy. I think it's silk. I'm not 100% sure. It's definitely not just cardboard. And it's got 2 colors inside in the text, actually.
That's pretty nice. Okay, so that's if we've read Neil Gaiman, we've read a lot of Neil Gaiman. We really like Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
So I guess that was just like a however long, like 8-minute long flex about how much we like Neil Gaiman.
But the one thing I want to point out that's my most valued, if not, and it's definitely not the most valuable book I've got, and it's interesting because Good Omens was recently made into a do you call it TV series if it's on Amazon and they released it all at once?
Oh God, I forget. There's like a term for it, but I don't. Yeah,
a miniseries. Like,
it's not quite a web series.
No, but it
is almost a web series.
So, the Good Omens came out first in the UK. I did not get that edition, but I did get an advanced reading copy of the American Workman edition, and I was lucky enough to get that signed by both Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
And what's funny about the way they signed it is that Terry Pratchett had it first. He has a stamp, he has a signature, he says, burn this book. And he's Neil Gaiman signed it after and crossed out book. He wrote in proof, and he drew an arrow and say light match here.
Yeah.
Which was, I don't know, it's just really
fun. And I'm sure that's much more valuable now that Good Omens is out and like popular. It's not the crowd that it is popular with is probably not a crowd that has a ton of money for purchasing books right now.
Right.
But it definitely has a lot more cachet now.
Well, it's interesting too because in the collector's market, at least, even if it doesn't come out first, although it typically does, the first hardcover of a book is often the most collectible and the most valuable eventually if you live long enough. So it's just the problem with proofs is they're typically
and one always
paperback.
Hopes to live long enough.
Well, this is the problem I'm looking at, right? I've got a huge collection of books now, and I'm trying to think at some point they're not going to be as meaningful to anybody else. And what am I going to do with all these books when I'm in a when I have to move into nursing home and I have like one room to myself instead of a whole house and bookshelves stacked.
The entire room is going to be just filled with books.
I think it has to be. I mean,
not going to be able to walk.
You've seen the bookshelves. I mean, I don't
for
know
a couple of reasons.
Oh, that was a little big. That was pretty bad.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's it. You know what? I hope we don't. We're running a little bit low on time. Maybe we should switch over to the not question because that was our last question.
Yeah.
But I was hoping
want to talk about the coronavirus.
Well, we were
some folks getting sick.
We've gotten away from talking about sort of current event stuff, right? The things that were happening. I think the biggest thing that's happening around the world right now is coronavirus.
Yeah. Normally it's politics. I know how excited everybody is for us to bring politics into a mobile gaming channel. So we'll take a break from that.
So what's interesting is because I lived through SARS, but not, it's not like I got sick with it, but I lived through a time and I had a role where I was actually responsible for dealing with it in a way for the place where I worked.
Every day we get closer to doxing ourselves.
Yeah. So
now, what's your mother's maiden name? The name of your third grade teacher, your first pet, in the street you grew up on.
Right? I know. So again, I mean, we talked about Toronto. Toronto was the most public spread outside of China, and if not sort of the public face of the epidemic, because China at that time was doing a lot to suppress the kind of numbers that they were releasing about the number of people that were infected and the number of people that were dying.
Yeah.
And what was interesting to me now compared to then is it was so much scarier for a lot of really concrete reasons. And so a lot of facts, people are throwing out a lot of facts about coronavirus now, and they're saying a bunch of stuff. But I think what I wanted to do was maybe put a little bit of a layperson's perspective on it in terms of how it rolled out and why it feels so different now compared to then.
Yeah.
And
well, I think one of the things is that it seems like it's actually not super worrying now, right? Like out of the confirmed cases, it has a 3% mortality rate. But from estimates of how many people are infected and what new data is indicating, it seems to have like a 0.15% mortality rate.
That low?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if it is, but if those numbers, I mean, numbers aren't real the same way that people are real.
Yeah. And
if we don't really have a framework or context for understanding it, I mean, 3%, 1%, whatever, it can be pretty high, right?
Yeah.
So if you compare it to, I looked up some numbers. If you compare it to pneumonia, where it's hospitalized, or maybe, you know what, can we maybe not get to the numbers right away, only
Okay,
because
we can talk about
I think I
other
want to
stuff
put a little bit of like a human
Boots on the
face
ground
on it.
perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good term. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, boots on the ground is a good way to put it.
I don't know where that's from, but it's definitely not mine.
I mean, so think about it, SARS. At the time, we had no idea what caused it, and that's why they gave it the name, right? They called it
Sudden acute respiratory syndrome. Is that what it is?
yeah,
Okay.
and it was presumed to be infectious, but we know.
You're also sort of lying down now.
Yeah, I am. We know coronavirus is infectious, right? That's the spread. We didn't know how it was spread, but now we know that it spread like other coronaviruses, which is responsible for the common cold.
Ooh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, this time, besides, compared to Toronto last time where we were sort of the epicenter for the non-Chinese world, there's only been 2 confirmed cases in Toronto. One
Or
confirmed,
you should say the less Chinese world.
I guess that's
be
the
accurate.
non-China world.
Yeah. Geographically, not culturally, for sure.
So for the number of, so there's one case in Vancouver now as we do this podcast. There was one case in Vancouver. There's 2 confirmed cases in Toronto now. Both were their husband and wife that both came back from Wuhan province. So they're all direct contacts. And back then it was Toronto. Like, we didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
There was a case that had come through Scarborough Grace. There was a recent travel history, and all of a sudden people were dying around them. And in fact, we spoke to one of the people who was called in to intubate the guy in Toronto back in SARS, but he died before that could happen. So there's almost that connection. And at the time, it was just so scary because we knew nothing.
Yeah.
They started taking precautions for screening and stuff after it had really established itself and it started to spread.
Mm-hmm. Which is a little late.
Yeah, we didn't know what treatment was going to be effective. At that point, it was just what you call ventilatory support, which is mechanical ventilation, where they're so sick they can't breathe well enough for themselves.
Yeah.
They give them antivirals, antibiotics, and so antivirals is for viruses, antibiotics for bacteria, because they had no idea what it was. They'd try broad spectrum antibiotics and just hope that they would survive. And at the time, the people that were dying were people that normally don't die from respiratory illness. It was a lot of young people that didn't have a whole bunch of other illnesses. And then we had to wait until epidemiologists had figured out, okay, so there's a Chinese connection. And by the time they realized it, it was already well underway.
Yeah. The Chinese connection sounds like something you'd find in a spy movie. Well, just like a little bit racist, but in a way that's hard to place, where there's just like an Asian man at a casino who's like the person you talk to.
And you hope it matters that he's Asian.
It's the Chinese connection.
Well, it's sort of like, see, if it wasn't China, like if it wasn't a country, it'd be sort of the same way that epidemiologists figure out, it was bad lettuce at Loblaws that gave everybody hepatitis A, which was a thing. It was a real, I'm not making that up and hoping that Loblaws will sue me.
It's a weird pull.
But there was a case where there's a bunch of people who got hepatitis A from salad at Loblaws, and it takes epidemiologists who do a lot of good work to make the connections.
I don't know what the other ways you can spread hepatitis A, but I can tell you for sure that from eating a salad is the lamest way to get Hep A.
It's Hep A is one of the lamest kind of infections. I mean, it spread. You like this term, fecal orally. It means that somebody didn't wash their hands properly and handled your food after they'd handled their poop.
Like is an exaggeration. I think it's funny. I don't know if I like the term fecal oral route. It has some sort of unfortunate implications for the way that we live our lives.
Yeah. And before we even get to numbers too, I mean, one of the things it's important to recognize is anytime there's an incubation period. So incubation period meaning you get infected, you don't show that you're sick, and then you get sick. That gap between when you get infected and when you get sick is the incubation period. So if there's any kind of incubation period, in this case, I think the average is supposed to be 10 up to 14 days, that you have to manage your expectations because you don't see any of the benefits, any of the effects from protective measures, population measures like quarantining the whole city of Wuhan of 11 million people. Ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
You don't see it until after the average incubation period, right? Since once you start putting in changes, all the other people who are already infected, they're still popping up. You're still going to be getting them. So don't expect, you put in protective measures that you're going to notice anything. You're still going to have the same kind of spread that you would have if you hadn't put them in until you get to the point where you start seeing where they would have developed after the new infections, which still are delayed by a 10-day incubation period. So, I don't know that I mean, I had a lot of ideas I want to talk about. Nothing like detailed, but just a bunch of bits and pieces. Yeah, so maybe get to the fatality rate that you're talking about.
Yeah, so I looked it up, and I forget what the statistic was for infection, but it was some number. I think it might have been like the average number of people infected or something. But I don't remember. Where they're saying like, I think it was like the flu is normally like 1.2 or something. I don't know if that means anything to you.
Okay, you're talking about R naught.
Yeah.
That's it. So R naught is a number where they look at a case and how many average people the average number of people that case will infect.
Yeah. And so it's significantly more infectious. It was like 3 or something.
3.8. So,
Yeah.
but this is the problem, right? R naught. There's an excellent article. I linked this in the description in the Atlantic, written by Ed Yong, who's a science writer. And so let me just quickly quote it. In the past week, at least 6 teams of researchers, along with the World Health Organization, have published estimates of R naught for the new coronavirus. All these groups used different methods, but their results have been mostly consistent, with estimates hovering between 2 and 5.
Yeah.
WHO was a little more conservative than the others, with estimates of 1.4 to 2.5. One Chinese team is a clear outlier with estimates of 3.3 to 5.5. And a British-led group initially published a high average value of 3.8 last week before revising it downward to 2.5 as new data emerged. But somebody had already posted that or tweeted that, and it got a bunch of retweets. And so R naught is the number of cases that one infected case will likely spread to. So people get caught up in this big high number because if it's less than 1, it peters out, and anything above 1, it's going to propagate. And something over 3 is pretty bad. But because it's a theoretical number, it doesn't take into account what
Preventative measures.
Exactly. What do you do to limit the spread? So this is why you saw such a huge variation. SARS, there were differences it was either 2, as low as 2, or up to 5, depending on where it was, what measures they'd taken to try to limit the spread, whether people were just walking around doing whatever business, or whether they were staying at home and they were screening for people with symptoms and trying to keep them from being exposed to other people, right?
Yeah.
And because it's an average number, and the article gets into it really, really well, is that some people, there might be some super spreaders where they can infect like 100 people, and the
Love
other
that
people.
for them.
What's that?
Love that for them. It's great. Really get those numbers high. Get those quotas, Matt.
But it might be that some people don't spread at all, and so it's really interesting. It's a good article that explains what the R naught means and why the 3.8 isn't nearly as scary as people are making it sound to be. So last week the fatality rate was 17. I mean, the numbers have gone up, right? Because it was 540 hospitalized, 571 cases. This was last week. Right now, as of this video, there were 4,500 confirmed cases in China, and some people were saying maybe as many as 44,000 because the numbers are being suppressed. And the deaths, there were about 106 confirmed. And that's actually in line with the numbers last week, where there were 17 deaths out of 571 confirmed cases, but 540 have been hospitalized. So we're looking that it's still somewhere between 3% or maybe even a little bit lower of fatalities.
Yeah.
And these are the serious ones, because when you look at the number of cases that where it could be, some part of what they're talking about is that they are either asymptomatic or not symptomatic enough that they need to seek medical attention. And so there's going to be minor cases. And that's what you see in a lot of things where we don't know how to diagnose it first.
Yeah.
At first. And you underestimate the number of cases because the ones that present themselves to you have to be bad enough that you recognize it and you test it and you can say, yeah,
It's
this
selection
is definitely
bias.
it. Right. So what does that 3% mean? So it seems really high when you compare that with the less than 1% of influenza.
Yeah.
But that includes even the mild cases. But like I said, the novel coronavirus cases are probably being missed. Compare that to, and because the coronavirus, the ones that we see are the ones that are presenting with like a full-blown pneumonia.
Yeah.
If you look at the cases of hospitalized patients with pneumonia, there's about a 5 to 10% fatality rate. So within the first 3 months, so that pneumonia will actually kill between 5 to 10% people. What we really got is, it's a virus that spreads like the common cold, coronavirus. It's as serious as, right now it looks a little bit more serious, but I feel like once we get a handle on it, the fatality rate is going to drop a little bit as we pick up the less severe cases. It's as bad as influenza, but it spreads like the cold.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to, again, I like that term, boots on the ground. What we really, the most important thing is, instead of wearing masks, and I don't know if I want to get into a whole discussion about why mask wearing is kind of a funky business, but the key is, I think, wash your hands, don't touch your face or your eyes, and get your flu shot. Like, so the flu shot won't protect you against coronavirus, but it will protect you against a virus that is probably just as deadly and you're more likely to get, and can kill you just as effectively as any other respiratory illness that's floating around for us in North America, or I guess at this point we're talking about the world, right?
Okay, so there we go. I guess, is that all your coronavirus-related content?
So I do want to talk about one thing, right? Because and this is a conversation we haven't had yet. So I've got 3 boxes of face masks that I've saved from SARS. Like after SARS, during SARS,
we should make some money.
Well, no, that's not what I was saying.
Entrepreneurial spirit.
So you want an official BDCKR surgical face mask? No.
Yeah.
The point
protect yourself from coronavirus in style.
So actually, the footage ran out, so I'm going to just stick some other gameplay video.
We'll put something in here. I still got to talk about a recording setup because it's very funny, and I'm not going to pass up this content.
Okay, so the problem with face masks is so maybe the hand sanitizer is good because in the cases where you don't have running water, you do want to wash your hands frequently. It'll kill the virus, but the virus will just be dead on your hands. It's not going to get rid of it.
Get all that coronavirus off there.
So that makes a lot of sense, and the fact that the hand sanitizer is basically sold out everywhere, at least in Toronto, is a sign of that. The fact that surgical masks or N95 masks are sold out everywhere is kind of ridiculous because...
Ooh, our fan's going, and it's right on mic height. We'll see what this does to the audio. That's great. Love that.
All right, so hold on. I'm just going to I'm just going to make an adjustment. So it makes a lot less sense that the surgical masks, because surgical masks, the way they work and the way N95 masks work is different. Surgical masks, the intention is to try to they were made to keep the surgeons from breathing all their germs all over the people they're performing surgery on.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work well the other way because air and particles can get through the sides. And I guess really it's to protect your mouth and nose from somebody spraying droplets directly on your face.
Yeah, when somebody coughs directly into your open mouth.
Or I guess there's droplets that are floating in the air for a little bit. I mean, the range is pretty short. But it does that okay.
It's more of a shotgun approach than a sniper rifle.
Yeah. So
the coronavirus.
So the value of N95 masks is actually pretty low unless you've been fitted properly, because the filter that lets you breathe is fine enough that it picks out, I can't remember what it does, 95% of whatever certain size of micron particles.
Yeah.
But if it's really that tight and it doesn't fit properly, if it doesn't go through the filter, you're going to start pulling air through the sides of your mask. So it's going to come into you anyways. And so it makes a lot of sense to stick a mask onto somebody who's sick because it catches a lot of their junk. It absorbs it on the inside, keeps it from spreading to other people. If you're wearing a mask to protect yourself, it's not as good because... maybe the value of wearing a mask is that it keeps you from touching your face and touching your nose and mouth.
Yeah, because if you're adjusting it, you're going to get sick from your mucous membranes, which is your mouth, your eyes, and your nose.
Right. So when people adjust it, when they touch their face more because of the mask, that's actually making it worse. They're actually in worse shape because they're more likely to introduce stuff by touching it and touching all their sort of portals of entry where they can actually get infection. So it's kind of funny to me. So we've got these masks, and I think if we were going to use them, really we want to stick them onto people who are sick to make sure they don't spread it to other people.
I'm looking forward to making myself some legroom in my lecture halls by having a little coughing fit at the beginning of class. I'm joking. I'm not actually going to do that, but
not intentionally. Don't get sick. That's all. That's my best advice for you. So really, I think the advice still is wash your hands, don't touch your face or your eyes. Get your flu shot, and I guess don't not so much for you not to get sick, but don't get other people sick. Don't cough in their faces. Like if you're gonna cough or sneeze, cough into your elbow.
Keep it your own damn self.
Exactly. And if you've got the mask, then save it for when you're sick so you don't spread it to other people. The value, I think, of wearing the mask. I don't know that there's actually been any kind of study or proof to show that wearing masks helps, because the way most people wear masks, some of them will help, some of them will make it worse. And I think it balances out a little bit.
So there you go.
And that's it. So what were you going to talk about?
Well, our setup is very funny today.
All right.
We're on the ground. We're on the floor of a room. We've got a laptop propped on a laundry basket.
Upside down laundry basket.
On an upside down laundry basket, not just sitting in a laundry basket. And we've got a mic set up. So we've just been in sort of various stages of recline. I'm sort of laying back now. When I was sitting up, I made a pressure point on my leg and my leg went numb. So I lay back down again. I've been laying on a pillow for most of it. You're sort of...
podcasting injury.
You're sort of laying on your stomach now.
I am.
Which I don't know what any of this has done to the audio, but we'll see. You'll see if it sounds good or bad. And you'll deal with it, I guess, if you like our content. I don't know. Maybe this is the thing that's made you decide that our time has come to a close. And if so,
I guess that fits all those questions. Yeah, we had a good run. So we're getting close. So we're episode 51. It's almost like 52 episodes would be a full year, although we missed a couple. So it's almost like a deck of cards where the couple weeks off that we've taken are the jokers. So 52 would be a fitting end for the season.
It's about a year's worth of season 6. We haven't swapped up the formula in a while, but neither has Injustice. So I guess we're more complicit. Fitting. But at least we've been making new content.
Oh, that's a dig.
So right. There we go. To finish up, I had a different thing for this one, but I'm gonna go ahead. A shout out this week for Aliza. I have a venereal disease.
What?
She got Epstein-Barr a while back, which is like a precursor to mono.
Epstein-Barr is it the?
It can develop into mono.
Yeah. But venereal, it's not. It's a social
they don't
disease.
Call it VD anymore.
It's not. But it's not even a venereal disease. Venereal has to do with like genital contact.
Oh, is it not? So then what is it?
So it's just a social disease.
Okay, it's a fun social disease.
It's a disease
that's not the
of
term that she
contact.
used for it. This is with her permission.
Oh, she called it venereal disease?
She calls it a venereal disease. I think it's funnier when you call it that.
It's funnier, but less accurate. Okay.
Okay, well, that's fine. Epstein-Barr, thoughts and prayers. She doesn't develop mono, I guess. And this shout out has been brought to you by a bar of handmade soap, which is very good. It's
it's a fancy.
It's rosemary peppermint. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's hipster, and
very hipster.
A coworker of hers made it at the soap making place that she works at.
Speaking about doxing.
Well, hey, listen, I'm not doxing myself. So, also, a huge thank you to our patrons on Patreon. Do you wanna...
A big thank you to Consul Peasant and Edwoon, who are supporting us at the highest last word tier. Mohammed Albshaiti on the Your Message Here tier. Shawn Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Maule, and Michael DeVries supporting us on the credited level, and Chris Wolf at the gratitude level.
Yeah, so thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for your support. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.